Hello, everybody. I'd just like to welcome you all to this first video and first collaboration between Dig Deep Coaching and Indoor Specialist. My name's Stephen Gallagher. I'm one of the directors of Dig Deep Coaching. It's a global coaching company. And I'm here today with Matt Gardiner from Indoor Specialist to help you understand and get the most out of Zwift racing. So this is the first of a three-part series. So yeah, I'd like to Matt to welcome you and yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Like you said, I'm Matt Gardiner. I'm with Team Indoor Specialist. So we're a elite Zwift racing team. We're sponsored by Ceres Cycling. They make trainers and other equipment and Code and Nutrition. We're a 13 rider roster of some of the strongest Zwift racers in the game. All of us have been really at Zwift racing for since the beginning for the most part, and we currently hold the #1 world ranking on Zwift Power, which we'll get into later. And as a team, we hold that ranking, and then our team sprinter, Holden Camo, he holds the top ranking for the riders. So yeah.
Cool. So we're again really lucky to have your knowledge, experience, and what we're gonna do here over the over the course of this video and over the course of a number of other articles that we'll be releasing in the coming days is to allow people to get an insight into Zwift racing, to use that knowledge that you have across a broad spectrum of different types of information and tips and tricks and everything that you need to get into Zwift racing, because I know a lot of people are moving into it. So hopefully we'll be able to utilize all that information that you have that's going to go out to the general public. So again, thanks very much, and it's exciting to get into it. So so just explain a wee bit about what this video is about and the other upcoming content that's going to be coming out in the near future.
Yeah, so basically this video is intended to be like a quick start guide to Zwift racing. So we'll kind of go through some of the important resources for people who are coming into Zwift racing and how they can get started, um, what kind of streaming there is, and for races, so how you can cover or so you can follow the Zwift community. And then the second post that we'll do of the three is we'll go over the different courses that you might expect when you're going through and looking at races. So if you've been training for an in real life race that has a bunch of 5-minute climbs, like what course is best for you so you can have your best results. And then the final article that will be coming out with, a video, will go into the physiological demands of some Zwift races. So you can see, oh, this
Yeah.
Innsbruck Lutscher course has this kind of intensity, and this is the power that you might expect for your category level.
Yeah. And just a wee bit on that last video about us looking at the physiological demands. We're going to look at real life data. We're going to get in depth into certain power profiles of certain races. We're going to put out actual links to data as well, so people can then look at it into themselves and really get a better understanding into the physiological demands of certain races and the categories of certain races, plus how each course differs very much like it would do in the real world if you're racing in the real world. So so everybody keep an eye out for that going forward. So okay, so let's get into it. I think the first thing that probably we should start from is really, what is Zwift racing? There's a lot of people out there that have never raced on Zwift. Maybe they're on Zwift, they haven't competed virtual racing, but just give a wee bit of an overview of what is Zwift racing, how is it categorized, and how is it segmented for those people that want to come in and really compete in a level that they're happy with.
Yeah, so Zwift racing is really just it. Well, Zwift is a video game and powered by your power meter or your smart trainer. The races are segmented by categories. So if you take your functional threshold power divided by your body weight in kilograms, it's called watts per kilogram. There's 4 categories, and then there's also some women's categories and open categories. But um, if your watts per kilogram are 4 or above, you're an A. 3.2 or above, you're a B. And then there's a C and a D category as well. really it's a global game where everyone, no matter where you are, can take part in the racing.
Hmm. And you have obviously all them different categories. There's obviously A, B, C, and D, and some races there's also separate women's categories. And depending on the where you live in the world and the time that you have available, I assume there's a large range of races that's available, 24/7, basically, depending on where you are during the day.
Yeah, of course. So if you have like the Zwift companion app on your smartphone or your tablet, um, there's an events calendar that lists all the events for the day. Pretty much every 5 minutes, there's a new race or a group ride. Um, if you're looking for a race um, on Zwift Power, you can see how many people are signed up for these races um, at any given time, and you can really just like tailor the race to fit your needs.
Yeah, and there's different courses for um, different types of events. So there are criterium type courses. There are hilly courses. There's obviously flat courses. There's courses with 5 minute climbs, 1 minute climbs, and obviously that's we're going to expand a lot on that in the next article. But there's a lot of courses for all different categories that's allowed people to really pick the race that they want to do that meets maybe the demands that they want to see in their training, or potentially a course that is suits to their strengths. Maybe they're a climber, they want to do one with long climbs. So there's a real broad spectrum of racing there, and that's across all categories, isn't that right, Matt? It's not just in the elite category.
Yeah,
There's everything for everybody.
yeah, of course. Yep.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so, say you want to, you now understand Zwift, and maybe you've downloaded the app and you've been riding a little bit on Zwift. So, some people I think sometimes are a little bit nervous of, getting into their first race or getting into competition. So, what is the main reasons why you feel people should race on Zwift, or why do you see people coming into Zwift to compete? Is there any characteristics that you feel people really want to engage in the racing scene?
Yeah, and so I think for myself initially, I joined Zwift because the monotony of riding the indoor trainer was just it was too much. I really disliked being on the trainer. Zwift racing and Zwift riding in general just gamifies your training and makes
Hmm.
it just so much more enjoyable. The racing is incredibly fun, and is from a workout standpoint, for me, chasing a wheel up a climb is going to push me to better power than I can just staring at a number, doing an
Hmm.
interval workout or staring at my wall. It's really a huge motivator for performance
Hmm.
gains.
And I think one of the big benefits I see from Zwift racing and somebody wanting to compete on Zwift is the fact that you can compete virtually on terrain that you wouldn't otherwise be able to in real life. So, say for example, where you live there in the United States, it's very flat. There's not many climbs near you. You need to go a long way to get more than a 5 minute climb. You jump on the Zwift, you enter a race that is in Austria, or you want to go somewhere that on like a Box Hill course that you've got 5 minute, 10 minute climbs, or there's up to 20 minute climbs. You want to go right up the Zwift. It allows you to compete on terrain that otherwise you wouldn't be able to compete on, and with the technology, and obviously with the advances in smart trainers and the like, the actual physiological demands and the feeling and the biomechanics of how you ride on them climbs is as close as what we can get to being in real life. Of course, there's always the environmental changes that between real life and indoors, but still it allows you to really compete in an environment that otherwise you wouldn't be able to compete in real life. So I think that's one of the real big bonuses that we see from a lot of our athletes that we coach. Plus, personally as well, you can engage in racing on a type of terrain that sort of that suits you. And so, what are the lengths of the races, or what's the durations generally of the majority of them?
I would say the average race is like 30 to 60 minutes is a good window. It There are longer races on the weekends. You can find a 2.5 hour race if you really are feeling like you want to sit on the trainer for that long.
Mhm.
but the average is, I would say it falls under an hour, which is really convenient and kind of like the perfect workout. You can do a 15-minute warm up, 45-minute race, and a 5 to 10 minute cool down, and um, get off the bike. You just had a great workout and job done.
Mm,
So
yeah. And I've been racing on Zwift for a couple of years now, and um, it's it's very easy to understand now how difficult they are. I mean, anybody who is a regular competitor on Zwift will always say, how difficult the racing is, and I think that's sometimes a lot of people find that hard to understand why it is so difficult. Obviously, the gaming sensation of it, the drafting, trying to catch back up to a group after losing contact, how you attack is slightly different to what you feel in real life. So technically, you've got to probably learn a bit. You've got to experience, the racing and really get into it to sort of expand your knowledge on it. But maybe explain why you feel racing is so difficult and it is demanding on Zwift, and what are the characteristics that really make that racing hard?
yeah, every race on Zwift, you can't coast. So outside in a criterium, you might spend, I don't 20% of the race just freewheeling, trying not to hit the person in front of you. Well, on Zwift, you can ride through that person. So a lot of the races are like a low intensity time trial with huge power spikes on climbs. So the effort is just quite different. And at first, it's very intimidating because um, you can't stop pedaling, and that it just is more difficult than what people are used to. I feel like once you've raced a handful of times, you feel the draft. It, it's just something you have to really
Hmm.
do and learn how to do.
Yeah, I think the drafting part of it is the big, a real key characteristic to Zwift, that where you get the draft, the best locations of how to sit in a group without, going through it and coming out the other side, and maybe learning to back off at certain times to save your energy. Again, is very different to in real life. But again, it is a game. It's something that, you got to learn and experience, and it is fun. And I think there is a lot of characteristics to racing on Zwift, exactly the same as in real life. For example, the indoor specialist team is one of the biggest teams in the world at the minute in virtual racing, and tactically, you guys race exactly indoors as a team, tactically using the strengths of certain riders and certain parts of terrain, exactly like you would do in real life. And there's so many teams out there that are competing in their categories, bringing people together. You don't need to be an elite team to do these tactics or to race. You can be a group of guys. You can go into your B category race or C category race. You can get into a scenario where you're working together, and also you can communicate. Maybe just explain a wee bit maybe about how people communicate, between teams on Zwift.
Yeah, so we use just like a voice chat app called Discord, where we're all in races. We'll be talking to each other. Like you said, we have tactics where we have a team sprinter, or we have a couple team sprinters. We have guys who are breakaway specialists so we'll send guys up the road repeatedly and just make other teams chase us down while our sprinter sits in, just like what would happen in real world. And um, sometimes the breakaway works, oftentimes it doesn't, and Holden will rip through the sprint to win the race. So it's
And
a lot of fun.
it's exactly like, again, the scenario and your thought process very much to similar in real life. Um so okay, now you've got onto Zwift, you want to race, you see that there is benefits to racing. Say you want to take your racing to the next step. You want to take it a bit more serious. You maybe want to get into the community of racing. There's thousands and thousands of people out there across the world that me and you race with every day, and it's a great community. What is the next step to really engage a bit more in that community and to get more in depth into the racing?
Yeah, so Zwift Racing is completely free. You can do it just through the app and do your races and look at the results in Zwift Companion. But the community really abides by ZwiftPower.com, which is where all results and rankings are tabulated, where you can see all of your competitors' results history, and your own, and you can link your Strava profile to that, so people can go dig into what you actually do on the road if you're also racing outside. Um, so joining Zwift Power is really the next step in how to like take Zwift racing seriously, I would say.
Mhm. And with Zwift Power, there's certain things that you need to have to be able to authenticate your results. You need, obviously heart rate. You need to link obviously your Strava, and really, I think to prioritize people's their understanding that that result was real, that they have confidence in that result, because of course we're all sitting in our own garages and sheds in our own houses doing these events, so we need to authenticate these results as well. I think that's what a lot of Zwift Power is around, also just trying to authenticate slightly that the result was there and the performance was a real performance.
Yeah, and another thing, like on a lot of the top level racers race with a power meter and their smart trainer, and so like on my profile, you can go to an analysis tab where I've compared my output from all my power meter and my trainer to show that my power lines up between all my power meters. That's a bit more detail than we're going to go into, but there are definitely some efforts to show that these efforts are real, and that the community is pushing for clean esports. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So ZwiftPower.com is definitely the next step. Join it. And also for anybody that hasn't seen Zwift Power, it has a great platform as well whenever you're wanting to see the courses, the demands of courses, the elevation gains. It links as well to Strava segments as well. So it's a real great tool to use to understand the race that you're about to enter, but also understand the profile of the other riders that you're racing against. So I find it great to see, okay, I'm going to do a climbing race with a long, 20-minute climb. So I can see really who has the best power to weight at 20 minutes. So again, you're starting to look at tactics, who's the best rider to follow, who's not the rider to follow. And again, it just adds another element to the competition. So there's also live streaming on Zwift, certain races that you can watch, just like we can watch, other races. Tell us a wee bit about how you can actually watch Zwift racing online.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that Zwift races are streamed to the community. Nathan Guerra at Zwift Community Live on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, they're choosing like 4 or 5 different races a week and broadcasting them. So they have a live commentator that knows all the community riders. So if you're in there, they'll give you a shout out and say, Stephen Gallagher is going on the attack. But then also Zwift has started like their Pro-Am series, and they do some streaming through their Zwift Live, and they've got a full production team, broadcasters. They fly out and go do interviews with some racers and do some like bios on them, and it's really cool, and it's pushing for just greater accessibility and just more understandability about esports and Zwift in the cycling community.
Cool. Cool. And I know Nathan's doing a great job, and also Zwift as well, trying to promote this whole competitive side of it as well, and to
Yeah.
engage the community. So certainly follow them guys, Zwift Community Live and Zwift Live as well, to sort of learn a bit more and watch the racing. So so just briefly to explain again what's going to happen in the coming days, we will be launching another two articles coming up. Matt, you have an article coming out in the coming days explaining about the courses, going through specific courses and the demand of those courses across different categories. So it's going to help people understand when they're going to choose a race, what race they want to do, what exactly the demand of that race is, and again, it helps the selection and maybe puts it into their training slightly better. It puts it into their the calendar of what they're trying to aim for. And then I'm gonna work with you doing a video on the actual physiological demands of each race. So we're going to look at real life power data, so people can see tangibly the actual effort that is done over a number of courses. So we'll look at maybe a crit style race, we'll look at a climbing race, we'll look at a race with maybe VO2 type efforts. So again, helps understanding and allows you to sort of pick the racing a bit better. For anybody that wants to follow Dig Deep Coaching, you can check us out on social media or our website at digdeepcoaching.com. We're on Facebook. We're at Dig Deep Coaching, also on Instagram at Dig Deep Coaching, and also on Twitter. And Matt, I'm sure with the Indoor Specialists as well, you can follow you guys.
Yeah, you guys can follow us on Facebook. We've got we're doing race streams, and we're coming out with content all the time. Just Indoor Specialist on Facebook, and then on Instagram we're indoor.specialist. We try to come out with some interesting esports content as frequently as we can. So
cool. Okay, listen, thanks very much, Matt, and look forward to getting more stuff out there about Zwift racing soon.
yeah,
See you
thanks,
soon.
Steven.
Bye.